When I was 14 years old, we lost our home. I never heard my parents use the word foreclosure. It wasn't until recently that I even thought about my personal period of depression that followed the loss of my childhood home. I had lived there since I was 8 months old. It was the only home I had known up to that point. There were a lot of good things about moving to a smaller house, though. The big old house I grew up in got so cold during those Wisconsin winters that we would huddle around the heating vents in the morning, waiting for a blast of warm air. And my mother pointed out that they never were very good at keeping up a house, so they shouldn't really have owned one. Throughout, my mom kept a pretty positive attitude, mostly looking at the bright side, with a twinge of self-blame. I appreciate her ability to emphasize the positive, and it's one of her traits that I'm happy to have picked up. However, it didn't leave any space to talk about the feelings of deep sadness that accompanied my uprooting. They chalked that up to teen angst, and we moved on. Like a lot of people who can't pay the mortgage, my parents were victims of a scam. Not the banks in this case, but my dad's business partner, who embezzled large sums of money. My dad chose to keep it quiet because, apparently, when you're in the advertising business, your reputation is all you've got. In an effort to save the business, my parents went to court and declared bankruptcy. The house was foreclosed and auctioned off. My father still worked hard every day, but he wasn't making any money. My parents had enough resources and family support to rent a small 3-bedroom where my 16-year-old brother and I each had our own rooms. I didn't know then what I know now, that we were incredibly privileged to have a safety net. That had things been different, we would have been among the faces of the people I saw in the long lines at St. Benedict's when I volunteered serving dinner, or huddled in sleeping bags in front of the White House on that trip to Washington, D.C. we took when I was 8. We could have been homeless in 1988, along with 2 million other Americans by some estimates. We could have been homeless at the end of 8 long years of Reaganomics, when the gap between the rich and poor widened significantly by design. If we had needed help from the government, we would have found little opportunity because the main governmental agency to support affordable housing, HUD, had been stripped of billions of dollars under Reagan. In 1981, HUD's budget was $32.2 billion, and by 1988, with homelessness now at epidemic proportions, there was just $7.5 billion allotted to support affordable housing. And if that still sounds like a lot, just compare it to the $1.6 trillion increase that Reagan pumped into the defense budget over 5 years. Yeah, we could have been homeless then, and not just downwardly mobile, if we hadn't had a safety net to fall back on. And any one of us could be homeless now, though some of us are more vulnerable than others. Despite the fact that Reagan is dead and buried, the attitude of blaming the poor persists, among liberals and conservatives alike. And despite the fact that we've alternated between Republicans and Democrats in the White House, the gap between the rich and the poor is ever widening. The money allocated for affordable housing does not match the level it was at in the late 70s, and we've got laws in every urban area to criminalize people just for surviving. When we stop blaming everyday people for a system that is designed to oppress them, the question then becomes, what can we do?